We can send robots to Mars, split atoms, and decode ancient genomes, yet some mysteries from our own planet still defy explanation. Why can't we read a book that's been sitting in plain sight for 600 years? Or explain how ancient engineers built machines centuries ahead of their time? Today, we're diving into 10 real mysteries that science still can't fully explain. From cryptic manuscripts to ancient computers, from pyramids that rival modern precision to lines in the desert that seem to speak to the gods. These aren't myths. They're real, verified discoveries studied by archaeologists, engineers, and even NASA scientists. Each one reminds us that the past might have been far more complex and far more intelligent than we've been taught. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear might change how you think about human history. The Voynich Manuscript. Let's start with a mystery that has baffled linguists, codebreakers, and even artificial intelligence: the Voynich Manuscript. It's a strange little book, likely from the 15th century, filled with elegant handwritten text and surreal illustrations. Bizarre plants that don't exist, star charts that map unknown constellations, and women bathing in pools of green liquid. At first glance, it looks like a medieval textbook from another planet, but the real enigma lies in its writing. The entire manuscript is written in an unknown language or cipher that no one, not even the best cryptographers who cracked Nazi codes, has ever been able to translate. Some say it's a hoax, a prank meant to fool wealthy collectors. But that theory doesn't quite hold up. Why? Because the text follows consistent grammatical patterns, real structure, real rhythm, like a genuine language. If it's fake, it's an incredibly sophisticated one. Modern AI has tried to help. A 2018 study at the University of Alberta used machine learning to analyze the symbols and suggested it could be a coded form of Hebrew. But every attempt to decode it so far has fallen apart under scrutiny. Even the illustrations resist explanation, showing alien-looking flora and cosmic diagrams that seem both familiar and impossible. Some historians now think the manuscript might have been the personal notebook of a forgotten scientist, perhaps a Renaissance botanist experimenting with secret symbolic codes to protect their discoveries. Others suspect it could have been a guide to early alchemy or herbal medicine knowledge meant to stay hidden. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain: the Voynich Manuscript refuses to give up its secrets. And maybe that's what keeps it alive in our imagination, proof that even in a world driven by data and algorithms, some mysteries can't be solved by logic alone. And if you think that's strange, just wait until you hear about the world's first computer built 2,000 years before laptops existed. The Antikythera Mechanism. You'd think computers were a 20th century invention, but ancient Greece might have beaten us to it. Meet the Antikythera Mechanism, a bronze gear-filled relic discovered in 1901 off the coast of a Greek island. At first it looked like a lump of corroded metal, but when scientists scanned it with X-rays, they realized they were staring at something that shouldn't exist: a mechanical computer built over 2,000 years ago. This device had at least 30 precision-cut gears, crafted with the kind of accuracy you'd expect from a Swiss watch, not a Hellenistic workshop. Its purpose? To predict the movements of the sun, the moon, and planets, and even track the dates of ancient Olympic Games. Essentially, it was a cosmic calculator, a machine that could model the heavens long before telescopes existed. Modern researchers from University College London recreated it using 3D modeling. Their conclusion: the design was mathematically genius, so advanced it rivals the work of Renaissance engineers like Galileo. Some gears were smaller than your fingernail, and yet they worked in perfect sync to predict eclipses decades in advance. But here's the mystery: if the Greeks could build this, where are the others? The craftsmanship suggests generations of engineering tradition, yet no other example has ever been found. It's as if human knowledge suddenly jumped forward, then vanished for over 1,000 years. One theory is that the device was created by a pupil of Archimedes, the legendary mathematician who was experimenting with celestial models around the same time. If that's true, then the Antikythera Mechanism is the surviving echo of a lost scientific revolution, one that might have changed human history if it hadn't been swallowed by the sea. Think about it: this thing could predict lunar cycles and planetary alignments when most of Europe was still using sundials. It's like finding a quantum calculator in an ancient temple, a time capsule proving that intelligence doesn't always move in a straight line through history. And speaking of mind-bending ancient achievements, let's move from the sea to the sand, where a mountain of stone still guards one of humanity's greatest secrets: the Great Pyramid of Giza. The Great Pyramid of Giza isn't just old, it's almost impossible. Built more than 400 to 500 years ago, this monument to Pharaoh Khufu is the only surviving wonder of the ancient world, and it continues to defy logic. The numbers alone are staggering. 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing around 2.5 tons, stacked with such precision that even a sheet of paper can't fit between them. Some of the granite blocks in the king's chamber weigh up to 80 tons and were transported from quarries more than 500 miles away. Mainstream Egyptology says it was built by tens of thousands of skilled laborers using ramps and ropes. But exactly how they lifted and placed those stones and achieved such perfect alignment with true north is still up for debate. In 2017, researchers used cosmic ray muon scanning to peer inside the pyramid and discovered a massive hidden chamber, a void never explored before. Some think it could be the remnants of an internal ramp used in construction. Others believe it might have a ceremonial purpose we've yet to uncover. And here's something even more astonishing. The pyramid's proportions encode mathematical constants pi and the golden ratio long before they were formally defined. Coincidence maybe, but it's a reminder that ancient builders might have understood geometry in ways we're only rediscovering. So whether it's an architectural marvel, a spiritual machine, or a cosmic calendar carved in stone, the Great Pyramid still asks the same question. It did 4,000 years ago. How did they do it? And if you think pyramids are mysterious, wait until you meet a civilization that carved miles of art that no one on Earth was meant to see. The Nazca Lines. Picture this endless desert plains in southern Peru, marked by enormous drawings. A monkey with a spiral tail, a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a spider, and even a humanoid figure nicknamed the astronaut. These are the Nazca Lines etched into the ground between 500 BC and 500 AD, and they're so massive they can only be seen properly from the sky. That's the puzzle. The Nazca people, as far as we know, had no way to fly. So why create designs visible only from above? The technique itself was deceptively simple. By removing the dark oxidized stones from the desert surface, the lighter sand beneath was exposed. But to make a 1,000-foot-long monkey with perfect geometry, that required incredible planning. Researchers now believe the Nazca culture used ropes and wooden stakes as early surveying tools, essentially ancient engineering equipment. Some of their designs line up with astronomical events like solstices and star positions, though not consistently enough to prove a calendar theory. One modern study using satellite mapping suggested the lines could mark ceremonial pathways leading to water sources, a sacred geography in one of the driest regions on Earth. Others think the lines were a kind of offering drawn for the gods in the heavens. If you can't climb to the sky, maybe you draw on the Earth big enough for the gods to notice. Even NASA has scanned the area with radar to check for underground structures and found evidence of ancient irrigation channels beneath some of the drawings. So maybe the lines weren't just art. Maybe they were messages written in the desert, blending religion, science, and survival. Whatever their purpose, the Nazca Lines prove that mystery isn't always hidden. Sometimes it's right there in plain sight, too vast for human eyes to take in at once. And if the Nazca people reached for the heavens through art, the next mystery shows how others aligned their stones with the very heartbeat of the sun. Stonehenge. Deep in the English countryside, a ring of ancient stones stands against the wind. Stonehenge, one of humanity's most iconic monuments and one of its most puzzling. Built around 3000 BC, its massive stones weigh up to 30 tons, some transported 150 miles from Wales, long before the invention of the wheel. It wasn't just a pile of rocks, it was a cosmic instrument. Every year at the summer solstice, the sunrise aligns perfectly through its central stones, lighting up the altar like nature's own clock. Archaeologists once thought Stonehenge was purely a temple to the sun. But excavations have revealed hundreds of human burials, suggesting it was also a ceremonial graveyard, and possibly even a healing site like an ancient version of Lourdes. Many of the buried remains show signs of injury and disease, as if people came here from distant lands seeking cures from its sacred stones. A 2021 isotope analysis from University College London found that some of those buried travelled from as far away as modern-day Switzerland, meaning Stonehenge was a pan-European pilgrimage site thousands of years before passports existed. But perhaps the most intriguing theory is social, not spiritual. Some researchers think Stonehenge was a symbol of unity built by rival tribes working together after centuries of conflict. If true, it's not just a mystery of stones, but of peace, a monument to what humans can achieve when they stop fighting and start building together. And speaking of things swallowed by time, the next story is about a real city that sank beneath the waves and stayed hidden for over 2 millennia. The lost city of Helike. You've heard of Atlantis, but what if I told you there was a real ancient city that met the same fate? Welcome to Helike, the once prosperous capital of the Achaean League in ancient Greece, and the worship center of Poseidon himself, god of the sea and earthquakes. That's the irony: the city devoted to Poseidon was destroyed by him. In the winter of 373 BC, Helike was wiped off the map in a single night. A massive earthquake struck, followed by a tsunami so powerful it dragged the entire city into the sea. Ancient writers said that for years afterward, you could still see the ruins shimmering beneath the waves like a ghost city beneath the surface. For centuries, Helike was considered legend. But in the 1990s, archaeologists Dora Katsonopoulou and Stephen Sota decided to test the myth. Using seismic surveys, old Greek texts and plain old persistence, they made a stunning discovery. Helike wasn't lost to the sea. It was buried under river sediment several hundred meters inland. In 2001, excavations revealed walls, pottery coins, and even the skeletons of its last residents frozen in the moment of disaster. It's one of the most dramatic cases where mythology turned out to be history. Geologists now understand what happened. The earthquake liquefied the soil, creating a quicksand effect that pulled the city under before the tsunami buried it completely. It's a chilling reminder that lost cities aren't always fantasy. Sometimes they're just hidden under the earth waiting for us to rediscover them. Helike's rediscovery has changed how scientists study disasters. Today, researchers use similar techniques, ground-penetrating radar and ancient text analysis, to locate other submerged settlements around the Mediterranean. Each one tells the same story: that civilization has always lived in partnership with danger. And speaking of rediscovery, our next mystery begins in the deserts of China, where a few eerily preserved faces are rewriting the history of human migration. The Tarim Mummies. In the arid Tarim Basin of western China, archaeologists made one of the most startling finds of the 20th century. Over 100 naturally mummified bodies, some more than 4,000 years old. But these weren't the mummies anyone expected. They weren't Asian, they looked European, tall, fair-haired, with deep-set eyes and high noses. One, known as the Beauty of Lulin, looked so lifelike that when discovered, she seemed peacefully asleep. This discovery threw historians into chaos. How could people with European features have lived in the heart of China millennia before the Silk Road? DNA tests provided an answer that raised even more questions. The mummies were of mixed ancestry, part Siberian, part European, evidence of a migration wave that connected east and west thousands of years earlier than we thought. Their clothes were just as fascinating: brightly coloured wool garments patterned in plaid centuries before Scotland existed. Leather boots, woven hats, and even pieces of preserved cheese, possibly used as ritual offerings or food for the afterlife. One mummy, nicknamed the Chechen Man, was buried with 10 hats, and to this day no one knows why. Maybe a sign of status, maybe fashion, or maybe something we've completely forgotten. Modern researchers believe the Tarim mummies were part of a Proto-Indo-European culture that helped shape the early trade routes across Asia, the ancestors of those who would later build the Silk Road. Their discovery forces us to rethink history. Ancient humans didn't live in isolated pockets. They were global long before globalization existed. The Tarim mummies don't just connect continents, they connect stories, showing that we've always been wanderers, storytellers, and bridge builders. But if you think that's mind-blowing, wait until we travel back even further, to a time before farming, before writing, before civilization itself, when people who hadn't even invented pottery somehow built the world's first temple. Göbekli Tepe. For decades, historians believed civilization followed a simple path. First came farming, then villages, then cities, then temples. But in the 1990s, an archaeological site in southeastern Turkey flipped that story upside down. Its name is Göbekli Tepe, and it's one of the most important discoveries in human history. Built around 9600 BC, that's 7,000 years before the pyramids, Göbekli Tepe was constructed by hunter-gatherers. No metal tools, no writing, no pottery. And yet they built something that would still make modern engineers sweat. The site contains enormous T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing up to 20 tons, arranged in vast circular enclosures. Many are engraved with intricate carvings of foxes, lions, boars, vultures, and snakes. This wasn't a random campsite. It was a cathedral of stone built long before religion as we know it existed. What's even more fascinating is what this means for human history. Göbekli Tepe suggests that spirituality came first and agriculture followed. In other words, humans didn't start building temples because they had stable food. They started farming because they wanted to build temples. To feed the workforce needed for such construction, people had to cooperate, stay in one place, and cultivate grains. In short, faith may have built civilization, Archaeologists from the German Archaeological Institute and the University of Edinburgh have been excavating Göbekli Tepe for decades, revealing more questions than answers. Who built it? Why did they bury it deliberately thousands of years later? Some think it was a ritual site for early shamanic cults. Others believe it was an ancient astronomical observatory aligned with star patterns like Orion. Whatever the case, Göbekli Tepe proves that our ancestors were far more intelligent and organized than we ever imagined. It's a reminder that civilization didn't appear overnight. It was sparked by human imagination, curiosity, and perhaps the desire to reach for something beyond ourselves. And just when you think you've seen every ancient mystery carved into the earth, another one stretches across nearly an entire country. The Sajama Lines. In western Bolivia, near the Sajama volcano, lies one of the largest artworks ever made, and almost no one talks about it. The Sajama Lines are thousands of ruler-straight paths etched into the ground, covering over 9,000 square miles, roughly the size of New Jersey. Each line can run for miles, crossing hills, valleys, and rivers, yet they remain astonishingly straight. No modern surveyor could improve on their precision. These lines, believed to be created by pre-Incan cultures thousands of years ago, weren't drawn with machines. People walked them, scraping away the dark surface soil to reveal the pale earth beneath the same technique used by the Nazca. But unlike the Nazca Lines, the Sajama network doesn't form pictures or animals. Instead, it's a vast geometric web connecting sacred shrines, burial towers, and villages. Some archaeologists think they were pilgrimage routes walked by generations of worshippers traveling between ritual sites. Others see them as spiritual maps, linking the living with the ancestors, a visual expression of connection between heaven and earth. And yet the sheer scale is staggering. Estimates suggest the total length of the lines exceeds 10,000 miles, nearly half the circumference of the planet. Modern GPS mapping by National Geographic teams shows that even after thousands of years, many of the lines still align with astronomical directions. Coincidence? Or did the builders understand geometry and astronomy at a level we still underestimate? Either way, the Sajama Lines remind us that human creativity doesn't need technology, it needs purpose. These weren't messages written in ink, but in earth itself, meant to be read by the sky. And speaking of mysterious artifacts that defy explanation, our final enigma might just rewrite what we think ancient technology was capable of. The Baghdad Battery, our final stop, takes us to the cradle of civilization, modern-day Iraq, where a small clay jar discovered in 1936 has sparked one of the strangest debates in archaeology. It's called the Baghdad Battery, and if the boldest theories are right, it could be the world's first electrical device. Here's what was found: a 5-inch tall clay pot containing a copper cylinder inside of which sat an iron rod, all sealed with asphalt. When modern scientists filled replicas of this jar with acidic liquids like vinegar or grape juice, the setup generated about 1 volt of electricity, enough to power a tiny electrochemical reaction. That's wild, considering the artifact dates back over 2,000 years to the Parthian Empire. If it really was a battery, it predates the modern understanding of electricity by nearly 2 millennia. Some historians believe it may have been used for electroplating coating jewelry or statues with gold or silver using electric current. Replicas have proven this possible, producing thin metallic coatings on copper ornaments. Others, however, argue that the object wasn't a battery at all, but a scroll container used to protect sacred papyrus texts, with the metal components serving structural purposes. The acidic residue inside could simply be decomposed organic material, not leftover electrolyte. To this day, there's no definitive answer. What's undeniable is how forward-thinking the design is. The battery theory inspired engineers at General Electric in the 1940s to test ancient tech experiments, and their replicas worked. That means whoever made it, whether intentionally or by accident, stumbled upon one of the fundamental principles of electricity long before Benjamin Franklin or Volta. So what do we make of this? Was the Baghdad Battery a technological miracle lost to time, or a coincidence that fooled modern scientists into overestimating the ancients? Either way, it's proof that curiosity isn't bound by time. People have always been driven to experiment, to tinker, to uncover invisible forces that shape our world. Final reflection. From the Voynich Manuscript's unbreakable code to Göbekli Tepe's impossible architecture, from the Nazca Lines to the Baghdad Battery, every mystery we've explored shares one thing. They remind us that the past was never simple. It was imaginative, inventive, and maybe even more advanced in ways we can't yet measure. Science can carbon date, analyze, and simulate. But sometimes the deeper truth lies beyond the data, in the human spark that created these enigmas in the first place. Maybe the beauty of science isn't about finding every answer, but about asking better questions, the kind that keep us humble and endlessly curious. So tell me, which of these mysteries blew your mind the most? Do you think they hide lost knowledge, or are they proof that human creativity has always been limitless? If you love learning how weird and wonderful our universe really is, make sure to subscribe for more explorations into science history and the mysteries that still defy explanation.